Hello, everybody. This is Getting Started with Pulumi Insights. My name is Josh. I'm a senior solutions architect here at Pulumi. With me is Marina. Marina, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Josh. Excited to be here, as usual. I'm a senior partner solution architect at AWS. I work with Pulumi on different new features, capabilities, how to make Pulumi even better for AWS. I don't know. It's hard, becoming hard. Pulumi is pretty good already. But yeah, if you have any questions, I'll be helping today to Bryce and Josh, and just put it in the chat and or Q&A. Thank you.
And also joining us today is Bryce. Bryce, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hey, yeah, I'm Bryce. I'm an engineer on the Pulumi Cloud side of the house, and I'm really excited to show off some of the stuff we've been working on recently.
Awesome. Okay, so before we begin, a little bit of housekeeping. Do comment in the chat. Let us know if something, what you like, if you're impressed by something. If you have any questions, you can ask those questions, preferably in the Q&A tab, but we're monitoring both the Q&A and the chat. The difference with the Q&A tab is that it stores the question so that it doesn't scroll out of view for us. But we will try to catch your questions and answer them in real time wherever possible, whether you ask in the chat or in the Q&A. You can join us in the Pulumi community Slack. If you go to slack.pulumi.com, it is an awesome place to learn about Pulumi or ask questions. There are Pulumi staff members in there, such as myself and Bryce. We have also like a really engaged community there. And you can ask anything, whether it's like, how do I do this infrastructure on my preferred cloud? Or even like advanced, basic stuff with Pulumi to like the most advanced stuff with Pulumi. I've seen people ask questions at all different levels in the Pulumi community Slack, and like it really is, I think, one of the best ways to learn how to use Pulumi. We have in the handouts tab, you can download the slides for this presentation if you like. Everybody who has signed up will get a recording of this webinar 1 to 2 days after this is completed, and it'll be like a link to YouTube. So no worries. That's a question that like always comes up: is do we get a recording? The answer is yes. You'll get a follow-up email within 1 to 2 days. Feedback is always welcome. Please let us know, like, hey, what worked for you, what didn't work, and what type of content you'd like to see more of, because we want to serve you, our audience. Cool. So if you have not yet signed up for a Pulumi account, it is free for individual use forever. I cannot stress enough how much easier it is to learn Pulumi using the default Pulumi Cloud backend. So I definitely encourage everybody to sign up for a Pulumi account if you have not yet done so. Pulumi Cloud, we're going to show you some of the features in the UI, but even if you're just using the all otherwise open source stuff, it will manage your state file and your secrets for you, and it is, in my view, by far the most convenient way to do that. Once you are up and running and comfortable with Pulumi, if you are thinking about adopting it at an organizational level, that would be a great time to sign up for a free trial. There is no credit card required, and you will get full access to all of our highest level features for 14 days. So again, like sign up for a Pulumi account regardless when you're learning Pulumi, and if you're thinking about adopting it at an organizational level, please sign up for that free trial for an organization. A little bit about what Pulumi is for those who aren't familiar. Pulumi is an infrastructure as code tool that allows you to use real programming languages, and we'll get into which ones those are in just a minute, with a whole bunch of clouds. So we have 130 providers. Yeah, something like that, about 130 plus providers. And again, you can use real programming languages to manage those resources. We also have an AI feature, which we will be showing later in this workshop. And we also have some really cool features like our automation API, which allows you to write command line tools and web UIs to do like platform engineering type stuff that will allow you to encapsulate Pulumi within your own programs. A little bit about Pulumi's program model. At the outermost level, we have the Pulumi project. You don't generally deal with projects too much directly. They're really created when you initialize your Pulumi program, and they kind of disappear if you destroy the last stack. Within the project, we have a program. We are using TypeScript today, so the program's main entry point is index.ts. That's where we're going to be defining our infrastructure. Our infrastructure is defined via Pulumi resources. An example of a Pulumi resource is an AWS S3 bucket. Resources have inputs and they have outputs. An example of an input to a bucket might be if you're explicitly specifying the name. And an output would be an example of that would be like an ARN. And so as you write a Pulumi program, you will see this pattern of where one resource's output becomes the next resource's input. So if we have a bucket and we want to define a bucket policy, the ARN output of the bucket will become an input to the bucket policy. And what's going on behind the scenes is Pulumi is keeping track of the dependencies between your resources so that it knows how to spin things up and down as quickly as possible. And it knows like, hey, what needs to be done in what order. So that is the program. In addition to the program, we have the concept of stacks. Stacks are essentially an instance of your Pulumi program. But you can supply different configuration values for different stacks to spin up, for example, like a dev, a QA, and a prod environment. In your dev environment, you might want to, for example, use less EC2 instances and or like less powerful EC2 instances than you would say in your prod environment. And the way that you can do that is via stack configuration. A little bit about Pulumi's physical architecture. So at the bottom left of this slide, we have our Pulumi program. Pulumi programs can be written in a variety of languages. We have Python, we have TypeScript and JavaScript, but I definitely lean towards TypeScript when doing Node, and that's what we'll be showing today. We also have support for Go, C#, F#. We have Java support that is in preview. And we also have a YAML option that is used mainly for like larger organizations that are adopting Pulumi at scale, where you might have some folks who are from a traditional operations background and would prefer to work in YAML rather than real programming languages. Your Pulumi program is interpreted by the Pulumi engine, and this in the stuff that we'll be showing today. That's the Pulumi CLI. And the Pulumi engine will basically look at what your Pulumi program wants and your state file, which is what you have, and it will figure out the difference between those two things. And so it will figure out what needs to be created, updated, or deleted. And the way it does that is via a Pulumi provider. So in this picture, we have the Pulumi AWS provider. We also have a Kubernetes provider. If you head on over to the Pulumi registry at pulumi.com/registry, you can see the full list of Pulumi providers that we provide. And so that's where you get those supports for like all those public clouds and like a long list of SaaS and SaaS providers as well. Like we have a GitHub provider, a GitLab provider, Datadog, New Relic. You name it, there is probably a provider for it, so that you can get all of the goodness that Pulumi provides with a declarative nature to manage resources in a ton of different services. Today, we're going to be focusing a little bit on Pulumi Insights, which are some new features that we've added to Pulumi Cloud. So we have a search feature that will allow you to search through your resources. That can be super helpful when it comes to trying to find resources. And also, you get for many resource types, you get a very convenient link where you can jump into your cloud console. We also have analytics that allow you to export your data and then enrich it with pretty much anything you can imagine. And then we also have Pulumi AI, which we'll be showing momentarily. Before we get to that, I do want to do a very brief demonstration of how a Pulumi program works in case folks are not familiar. So I'm going to share my screen. Right here. And I'm going to shuffle some windows around. And I'm going to get my mug off of here so you can focus on the screen. Okay, cool. So what we have here is a blank directory, and I'm going to initialize a Pulumi program. That's with the Pulumi new command. When I run this command, you can see that we have a large number of templates, starting templates that you can start from. It looks like 212 right now. So I'm going to go static, website, AWS, TypeScript. Cool. We'll give it a project name, description, and stack name, region we want to deploy to. And I'll go with US West 2 because that is close enough to me. Again, these are some prompts that are specific to this template because it's a static site. And again, all the defaults are fine for what we're showing here. Now you can see that an npm install is running behind the scenes. This output should look familiar to anyone who has worked with Node to any extent. Okay, and so now our project has been scaffolded. So what do we have? Okay, so we have Node modules. Again, this is we're using real programming languages, so that is how Node stores your dependencies. We have this www folder that is going to hold our website files. That is generated by the template. We have a git ignore. It's not particularly interesting. And then I'm going to skip over index.ts and come back to it just momentarily. So we have our Pulumi.yaml. This is your project configuration. So you may remember that when I was running the Pulumi new command, I was prompted for, like, for example, the name of the project. And so those responses to those prompts, they go into Pulumi.yaml, which is your project configuration. We also have Pulumi.dev.yaml. And so this is your stack configuration. If we wanted to, if we were deploying our static site maybe into like one region for dev and maybe another region for prod, we would be able to create another stack and another associated configuration file. And we would be able to enter a different region in there, and then the stack would deploy to a different region. Okay, so now onto index.ts. And I'm going to minimize. I'm going to bump it up one more size to make sure. Okay. So this is our index.ts. This is the heart of the Pulumi program. Going on a quick tour of this file, we are importing some libraries, the Pulumi SDK, which we need for like kind of to access values from our config file. We are bringing in the AWS provider. This is what allows us to create AWS resources. And then finally, we are using a Pulumi component called the synced folder. And that gives us a really simple way to sync a folder to an object store. And then this particular synced folder will cover all three of the major cloud providers. So in this block here, we are pulling values from our stack configuration file. So it will pull from whichever stack is currently selected. Now we are only doing one stack here, the dev stack. So it's going to pull from pulumi.dev.yaml. So this is how you get these values here into your program. Next, we're going to create an AWS bucket. You can see that we new up an object in TypeScript. The first parameter here, this is our name. This is what identifies the resource within the Pulumi stack. And then after that, we have options that are specific to the type of resource we're spinning up. So this block here gives you the website configuration. And then we can specify our index document, which is index.html, and our error document. You'll notice that because we are using real programming languages, all of the tooling that we expect from writing other programs applies here in our IDE. So if we wanted to specify an ACL, we can do that, and we get strongly typed. I believe it's nope. I don't remember what type ACL is off the top of my head, but we can hover over it and see. Okay, so the ACL is a string. So we get all the typing goodness that comes with TypeScript. Moving through the file a little bit more, so we're going to define some more resources that pertain to the bucket. You'll notice here, by the way, so this is our bucket ownership controls, and here one of the inputs, right, to the bucket ownership controls is the name of the bucket, which is bucket.bucket, because this is one of the older AWS APIs, and they got more consistent as they went along. But here's where we can see that pattern that I showed earlier, where you have the output of one resource becoming the input of another. So I'm going to briefly go through the rest of this file. So we do some access controls. And next we create our synced folder. So that is going to sync the contents of our www folder with the S3 bucket that we created. And then on top of that, we're going to create a CloudFront distribution, because in our Pulumi templates, we've taken some pains to make sure that these are, like, if not fully fleshed out production architectures, they are definitely more production like than you might get from other examples. Okay, so we create a CloudFront distribution, and then finally we create what are called stack outputs. In TypeScript, we do this with a normal export statement. And we are so what these do is these allow us to access values that are inside our Pulumi program externally. And there are two ways that we would possibly want to do this. One, which we'll be demonstrating shortly, is via the Pulumi stack output command. So that will allow you to access that value from the command line. The other way that you might use a stack output is via what is called a stack reference. A stack reference is basically allows you to reference these outputs from another Pulumi program. So if this looks good and we are ready to deploy some infrastructure, let's clear the screen. So you can run the Pulumi up command. That is short for update. By default, Pulumi up will always let you know what it plans to do before it actually does anything. So that's what it's doing right now. It is figuring out what resources would be created, because this is the first time we've run this program. And we can take a look at our preview. This looks good. We can select yes to continue. Now, this takes about 2.5 minutes to run, so I will bring you into the future here. So this is what will happen about 3 minutes and 16 seconds later in my other window. We can see that everything has been created. We get some outputs here. And so let's see. So here's the contents of our www file. It's pretty basic index file. It's more or less a hello world. So what we can do is we can curl, and we'll take the value of Pulumi stack output. Let's use the CDN URL. I think I mistyped that, but I can't exactly see because yep, I think I did. So if we curl that URL, cool. We can see that our website is up and running. So, and then just one more thing I want to show real quickly is that if we make some change, let's change the minimax TTL. Let's change this to 300, 300, do 200 min, and like 400 max. Okay, so we've changed something, right? So what we're going to demonstrate here is the declarative nature of Pulumi. So if I go Pulumi up, again, it's going to give me a preview of what it's going to do. Okay, so you can see here, right? It's not going to, even though I'm running the same program again, it is not going to recreate every resource that I've defined. So this is what we mean when we say that Pulumi is declarative. You only need to say what it is that you want for your desired state of your infrastructure, and Pulumi will figure out the diff and figure out what steps need to be taken in order to make it so. We can also go down to this details tab so we can see exactly what changed. And you can see the diff here that were the things that I just changed in the UI. And if we want to perform this update, we can say yes. And Pulumi will do the thing. Hopefully I've specified valid values for this. And because we have changed that cache behavior, it is possible that this could take a while to finish running. So in the interest of time, I will jump to a different window. We'll go back to the original window, which was this, I believe. And it's still doing its thing. So no relief there. All right, let's go back to here. All right, I'm going to let this run, but let's keep it moving. And by the way, and finally, you'll be able to tear down all of your infrastructure with the Pulumi destroy command. It is important to do that so that you do not incur charges for any infrastructure that might still be running that you meant to tear down. So again, the command is Pulumi destroy, and that will tear down all infrastructure in the stack. So I believe with that, it is time to hand off to Bryce. Bryce, are you there?
Hello. Yes. All right. So I'm Bryce. I'm an engineer on the Pulumi Cloud offering, and actually a developer on this search feature that I'm going to show you. So I'm really excited to show this off, and also very excited to take any questions or feedback you might have. So please don't hesitate to drop a note in chat. Okay, so basically, Josh just showed you how to create a Pulumi stack, and when you do that and you do it enough, you often a piece of feedback we hear often from customers is that, like, you end up with so many stacks and so many resources that it actually kind of becomes difficult to keep track of it all. So right here, I'm showing you the Pulumi Cloud dashboard for Pulumi. You can see that we've got 45,000 resources approximately. And so a natural question that comes up is, what are those things? Where did they come from? Are they all still relevant? Should I clean some of them up? These are all very natural questions that our customers have. And so that was the motivation behind resource search. We wanted to give you, the user, the ability to see a bird's eye view of your resources under management, and then also be able to dive in and understand more precisely, like, what is all of this going on behind the scenes. Because when you've got an organization of people, dozens or hundreds of folks working on hundreds or thousands of stacks, it's a lot. So we've got this new tab here on the console called resources, and if we click into here, we'll just collapse this to make some space. We can see the resource search interface, and right away, you already have a bit of a bird's eye view on things. And so I can see right now that the last stack that was updated happened about 20 minutes ago, and it looks like my colleague Devin updated his Pulumi service stack. So that's cool. That gives me a nice immediate sort of summary of what's going on. And I can also expand this advanced filtering tab here to see some aggregate information about my resources. So I can see at a glance that, oh, this is interesting. I actually have almost 11,000 GitHub issue labels. Now, I happen to know why that is, but if I were, some a manager or someone sort of curious, I might be able to, click into that and explore a little bit more about what's going on. I can also, if I want to go deeper than just the top 3 things, I can expand this to a even more complete view of things. So now I can sort of see, all right, I've got a lot of AWS things, and I can filter things down to just AWS. And then from there, I can see, okay, I've got a lot of buckets. Cool. And so this is all just, bird's eye view and filtering and aggregating. But then I can also I can ask questions. So maybe I'm interested in things that belong to me. My name is Bryce. I know that I've got a stack somewhere probably. So I can search for me, and then I can filter this to like, okay, so here's my, I know I've got a Bryce test stack, and I've got a Bryce stack, and I can sort of filter down to the stack I'm interested in, and I can further refine it. So I can see, how many subnets do I have? Oh, I've actually got quite a few. And so this is the idea behind search, is enabling you to really explore and slice and dice all of the resources you have to be able to answer questions like this. Bogdan, you're asking, can you query resources via tags with Insights? Okay, this is this is a great question. There is an undocumented Easter egg which I can show you, and the answer is yes. So, for example, I can search for, let's see, something tagged with. What this shows me is anything tagged with a stack tag, and I can filter that down to. Let's see, does Devin have some tags? Yeah, okay, so I can see that Devin has a cluster and a cluster instance in his stack that happen to have a stack Devin tag. And let me.
And to be clear, Bryce, is that is an AWS tag with the key stack, not tags which you can also apply to Pulumi stacks.
Correct. Yes, correct.
Tag all the things.
I can't log into the AWS console right now, so you'll have to take my word for it. But if we clicked into the resource, which I just did, you can see that it's got tags on it with stack Devin. That is a very common ask that we have from users. It's not documented right now because it's a little buggy and we're working on it, but expect to see more with that in the future. Yeah, it's a nice Easter egg. Cool. Yeah. So this is really cool. There's a pretty powerful search syntax here. There's a summary of it here, and then you can click into the documentation to get a more complete view. You can do things like date ranges and ors and negation, all that. So that's cool, but sometimes you also just want, well, it wouldn't be a feature launch without AI integration, would it? So we also have an assistant that can help you find, or can help you like craft a particular query given this index. So,
Bryce, could we try that for the very same tags thing that you just ran?
Yeah.
See if we could get an answer to Bogdan's question. Yeah, even just without even consulting the docs, that would be super rad.
Let's see if this works. Almost. It needed a little help there. We'll work on that. Could do something similar, like all compute instances in AWS or Azure. Like, cool. So this is showing you,
wow.
It's searching by a particular instance type or for AWS as well as an instance type for Azure, and showing you the union of those things. So that's handy. Just as like a newcomer to the syntax, it's a nice way to sort of pick it up and learn without needing to spend a ton of time in the docs.
This is a new feature to me. I either didn't notice the button or had never clicked it, and I am impressed. I can also say directly from personal experience that the docs on search query are really good, and it kind of just worked. And I think that figuring out search query syntax, because everybody often does it their own way, has been a major pain point in the past. And I think the Pulumi Cloud team has done a really good job of writing good docs here. And again, that AI assist is wow. I am probably going to be using that like very, very soon.
That's awesome, Josh. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, cool. And some other things I want to note. all of this as well is available through an API, because we completely understand that, like, yes, this interface is nice, but things can get, you take things to the next level when you start building automation and tooling around data like this. And so there's a pretty robust API that you can query to generate, to programmatically fetch resources and, build all sorts of tooling around it, whatever you want. Additionally, this is aware of your permissions, and so you can hear my dog, my co-presenter over there. I'm sorry. This is aware of your user's permissions. So I am able to see all of the resources in Pulumi because I am an org admin, which means that I have access to everything. But it's possible to set up more fine-grained permissions. So for example, it's possible, if I were a contractor or something, to only give me access to the stacks that I need access to. So maybe if I'm Devin and I'm a contractor, I only have access to the Devin stack. If that were the case and I were to load up this resource search, then I would only see the resources that I have access to. So this is typically a use case that comes up in large organizations who have finer grained permissions requirements where they don't want everyone to see everything, but it's still valuable to see the things that you have access to. Cool. So I showed you resource search, spoke about the API, permissions.
And Bryce, we do have a question from another question. How would AI Assist integrate with automation API, or is it UI only?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess right now it's UI only. If you want to drop a note in the chat or Slack about what you have in mind with automation API, that's an interesting use case. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about what you have in mind.
Bryce, one of the possible cases I'll probably bring it in is, like, for example, to download. We have download a CSV here, but can we automate it through API currently?
Oh yeah, so that's kind of, yeah, that's what I was going to get to next, is this download CSV thing. Yeah, so basically the real value here is in the data. And a lot of our users, a lot of our customers have data warehouses of their own. They've got some BI tools that they use. And it's really helpful to be able to see data like this alongside those existing data warehouse solutions. And so for our enterprise customers, yes, you can download all of these results here. That is behind an API, so you can query that. If I filter this,
and also, you can notice that as Bryce enters each query, the URI in the browser bar updates.
Yeah.
So that that's also like a really easy way to if there's some query that you like you can figure out how to do through the UI, and you want to take that and do it programmatically. You could just grab it from the address bar.
Exactly. You're going to query basically the same query string. And so, yeah, I can query something, then I can grab all of those results in a CSV. In the interest of time, just take my word for it. Once you have that CSV, you can then load it into something like Snowflake or whatever tool you prefer. And from there, you can then join it against whatever data you might have on your side. And you can build all sorts of interesting things. You can build a dashboard on top of that. Here we've got something kind of showing all different ways to slice and dice this. We've got your resources, your top resource types by package. We can see we have a lot of AWS things. Unfortunately, this panel is currently broken because some of our data is not working this morning. But if you have an internal sort of cost table, you can join that against your resources to estimate, how much is each stack costing me per month. Or if you have an org chart or team data, you can sort of break this down and understand by department or by team, where your resources are going. You can see how fresh things are, how often things are getting updated. how out of date some providers are. You can see we've got a pretty wide spread here just because of how many updates we're doing. But yeah, that's the idea. Is you can take the underlying data here and marry it to whatever else you have internally that you're curious about. Let me just check the chat.
That was great, Bryce.
Can it integrate with Active Directory? Yeah, so I think the idea there would be it depends on what you're asking. If you're asking about like specifically logging into the Pulumi Cloud like web UI, we do have a skim integration that you could use. If you're asking about joining search results against some Active Directory systems, I think you would need to basically get that data into your warehouse and then join it against the search data.
I don't know if we cover it, but what is the Pulumi CLI capabilities around search?
Yeah, that's a great question. Basically, we have this. We would like to do this so you could query from the CLI. I think there's an issue for this. If you have, let me try to dig that up, and if I can't, let me try to dig up the issue so you can vote on it. And I'm very eager to hear anything in terms of how you might expect the results to be rendered, for example, or what you might expect the command line user experience to look and feel like. But we do want this. I think we just kind of need to iron out a little bit of the UX around it.
Yeah, at present, it's worth noting that I think at present there's no Pulumi Cloud like specific capabilities in the Pulumi CLI, other than like it will use Pulumi Cloud by default to manage your state file and your secrets. Bryce, that was awesome. I think now is the time that we should maybe show off Pulumi AI. So I am going to bring my beautiful face back to all you lovely people, and I am going to share my screen. Okay, let's get that shared. Okay, cool. And I'm going to bring up. So Pulumi AI is reachable at pulumi.com/AI. I'm gonna. You will see this now appear on your handouts tab. It's just a link to what I'm showing here, and I'll make this bigger for you. Okay, so Pulumi AI is free for everyone to use. There's a lot of providers in the Pulumi ecosystem. We have 130 plus, as you saw earlier. Some of those providers, like AWS, have over 1,000 resources. Each of those resources has, I don't know, 30 configuration properties, we'll say on average. That's a lot of potential things that people might want to build. And it's really not possible for us to give an example for every one of those. So that's where Pulumi AI can come in. Now I'm going to give it a pretty basic query here. I'm going to go show me how to run Nginx as an VCS Fargate task in the default VPC. Okay, so I'm going to enter a natural language prompt here. I'm going to select my language. We're going to stick with TypeScript, and I'm going to go generate the program. And so it's going to do a little bit of thinking, and it's going to start with a reply that very often regurgitates my question. One of the things I learned as I was like learning about how this stuff works is that this preamble that it starts actually kind of creates like an internal feedback loop that makes it give a better answer. Okay, so we can see here that's giving us an answer. It's using the default VPC. It's telling us to use AWS and the AWS provider, and then we also have this AWS X, which contains some higher level constructs. And by the way, if we wanted to, we could tell it to only use AWS and not AWS constructs, and it would do that. So it responds to natural language inputs. So it is typing its answer out, and then when it is done, we will. Okay, so now we're at the export statement, so we're pretty much done. Now let's grab its input. Now, oh phooey. It should be I think the copy button doesn't appear until the response is complete. So I'm just gonna, if my mouse would cooperate. Get there. All right. Hopefully we're close. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of cleanup on this because I did not copy it cleanly. For that, and we'll also minimize that window. Okay. So you can see that we have some red squigglies. That is to be expected. All of these tools, they are not going to give you picture perfect, exactly what you need, output. There's going to be some iteration involved.
Josh, I have a couple of questions. Is I already jumping ahead and say it's a web version only. It's experimental, just release it, and say there is no integration with ID, and the question is like would be. So probably we can figure out where the issues in the GitHub and something to vote on it.
I do see. Now I don't have any inside information on this, but I do see that like clearly closing that loop is something that's desirable. It's also worth noting, by the way, that Pulumi AI is also available from the command line. There's like an npx version essentially you can run that will run it from the command line. And we have a demo video on YouTube. Bryce or Marina, if you could find that Pulumi AI demo video from YouTube, it does show using it from the command line.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we have some red squigglies, right? And there's a couple of things here. So this get default VPC, this is actually in AWS X, and this security group should be AWS. So let's go back to the window, and we're going to say, and just let it know, get default VPC should use AWSX, and the security group resource is in AWS, not AWSX. So it's going to it's going to do some thinking, and there is a copy button, by the way. It just didn't render because the response wasn't complete. And this, by the way, is how you want to use these tools when you're writing code. You give them a natural language prompt. They give you a response. If that response has things that need to be changed, you just tell the UI tool or the AI tool, excuse me, and it usually will make. There it goes. So you can see here, right? Const default, this line right here, which I'm going to try to copy and wish me luck. Because again, that copy button only appears when the response is complete. Give me that. Get over here. Oh, sigh. But you can see, though, that the important thing here is that this was changed, right? So I told it what was wrong, and it adjusted. Likewise, the security group, that is now probably a lot closer to correct. I am going to just hop on over to the editor and not wait for this response to finish. So again, I'm emulating the changes that the tool made. So, okay, now we can see that is now correct. And we can see that this is AWS X. You don't need that. Not sure what it's complaining about there. Oh, it says it's deprecated. So again, we can go back and let the program know, for example, that it's deprecated, so on and so forth. This is, again, it's not going to write all of your infrastructure for you, picture perfect every time. But what it does do is it gives you an excellent starting point that's probably about 80% correct on average, and can really, really be a huge time saver. There are a ton of things like that I do in my job as far as like writing workshops or blog posts where it's like, okay, I do not remember exactly how to write an IAM policy to access a secret. And that's where Pulumi AI really, really shines, especially when it's like, okay, I know the right answer when I see it. I just don't remember exactly how to do it in like this particular tool.
Yeah,
So
I used this to reproduce a bug where like all of our examples were using Fargate, and I needed like a specific EC2 thing, and it was so much easier to just ask this thing to tweak some code, and it was great.
yeah, so that is Pulumi AI, and I definitely encourage folks to check it out. It can really, really shorten the amount of time that it takes to learn some of this stuff. So, I think at this point we are available for any questions. Folks in the audience, do you have any questions that we can answer for you? Have you used Pulumi AI? Have folks in the audience already used it? Let us know in the chat. I can only assume from your silence that we have done an amazing job and that everything is perfectly clear to all of you.
Question, Josh. I didn't know if we covered it, or I was so busy searching for issues. There was a question: do you see in the future integrations between Pulumi AI and other AI tools like GitHub Copilot?
I don't have any knowledge. I am sure that closing that gap between Pulumi AI and your IDE is something that we would be interested in doing for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I just think advise probably to open the issue and Pulumi issues and vote for that, so it's easier for Pulumi team to understand priorities and ask to.
Yeah. So I'm going to keep talking if there are no further questions. But again, if anything comes up, let me know in the chat because we still have a few more minutes. If you are interested in attending any of our future workshops, you can head over to pulumi.com/resources. You can see there. We also, if you sign up for our newsletter, our newsletter will keep you advised of any upcoming workshops. I see that someone is asking me about a Pulumi podcast. That has been bandied about. We have definitely discussed it, but there are no concrete plans at this time. Oh yes, Pulumi Up. Our annual event is coming up in a few weeks. If I'm sure that if you go to many pages on Pulumi.com, you will be able to get all that info pretty quickly. And Marina has posted the link in the chat. If you are interested, if you're getting started with Pulumi, you can head over to pulumi.com/doc/getting started. We'll give you tutorials of like how to install everything. So we have a question about any coming integration from multi-cloud for Pulumi AI and also Kubernetes. You can, so just to be clear, if you ask Pulumi AI a question, it works for any of the providers that we have, including across all the major public clouds and a huge range of SaaS providers. So if you wanted to ask Pulumi AI, show me how to set up an EKS cluster and deploy some Helm chart onto it, it will give you that answer. And also, by the way, that's like one of the best things about Pulumi is that, for example, especially when you're using like Kubernetes, you can both define the cluster for your cloud of choice and deploy objects and manifests onto the cluster, and that's all orchestrated using the same tool. That is definitely one of the places where Pulumi really, really shines. We have a ton of examples that's in our examples repo. We are putting in some work, by the way, to make those examples more accessible from the registry and like the various pages in the docs. So keep an eye out for that. And you can, in the Pulumi registry, you can see all of the providers that we have for AWS and then all the other clouds we support.
Question: does Pulumi AI support other multi-clouds? Multi-cloud and Kubernetes provider or other providers?
Yes, Pulumi AI supports every provider that in the Pulumi ecosystem. So you can just as easily ask it, how to set up a New Relic dashboard, or like how to deploy an EKS cluster, and set up some add-on with it that might require a manifest. It can do all of those things. It will give you examples for all of that. Okay. So if there are no further questions, and I will speak slowly as I thank everybody, just in case anything comes up. Again, my name is Josh. You can find me on Twitter under my name. With me is Marina and Bryce. And we would like to thank you so much for choosing to spend time with us today. You can keep up with us on Twitter. Again, the Pulumi community Slack is a fantastic resource for to answer questions. You can watch some of videos of previous workshops and demos. That's all available on YouTube at Pulumi TV. And if you want to keep up with the code, that is, of course, at github.com/Pulumi. On behalf of Bryce and Marina, again, thank you so much for your time and have a lovely day, everybody. So long.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Bryce. Thank you, everyone, for joining.